Hello, this is Glenda, and I'll show you how to make some pine trees for the Christmas Village soap. I made it with soap dough, which if you've never heard of it, is just cold process soap that hasn't been exposed to the air. And I'm making just a small bowl by rolling it into my palms. And once you have a shape like this, what you will do is that against a smooth surface, like a table, your counter, whichever. I tend to press with this part of my hand, but you could do it with your fingers. This part is wider for me, and I just press and roll back and forth, and that creates a cone shape, like on the out of the bowl. And what you will do next is that you will cut this excess because right now it looks kind of like ice cream shape because the bottom's still rounded, but if you cut it off, then you have an even cone. This by itself could be a pine tree, but if you wanted to make it more realistic, you could press at the bottom, make an indentation. Right now I'm just using a brush to do that, but there are tools you can use as well. And here I have a small piece of brown soap dough, which I'm just gonna roll into a snake, and then I'm going to roll the tip to create a tapered end. And the idea is that I'm gonna press it into there. Right now it's a bit too long. And it helps if you put just a tiny bit of water, and it acts like glue. So I'm pressing it, and then I'm just gonna let it rest as is. You may think, well, that's a really long trunk, but when you put it into the soap, you're gonna sink it in, and let's say this was the surface of the soap, just about this much will be showing. And now when you create a soap that has trees sticking out like that, it's more fragile. Like if you're gonna shape it, you're gonna need to be careful with it. I also added snow. Now I didn't have much of white soap dough, but I did have leftovers from a white soap that I made and that I've beaten down. I pressed it until it became soft. It hasn't been exposed to the air, so that helped. And pretty much what I'll do is that I'm just gonna roll small pieces of it to create the snow-like effects. So ideally you don't want this to be regular, you want it to be random application and random sizes. I will put a little bit of the water in the spots where I want it to be, and I'm pretty much just going to roll it, cut it, and then press it into shape. As it is, it's too even, it's too perfect. Like, you want it to look more natural. So I pull it down, and eventually I broke it off, which is good. And then I'm gonna put some more, maybe lower. And I should have put water prior. However, the soap dough is moist enough that it is staying in place. But I'm also using the brush to make it stick. So I have the center piece, you know, the center of the tree cover. So now I'm going to apply some to the bottom, and I'm just using the handle of the brush to press it against it and make sure it sticks to the green part. And that part is kind of chunky, so what do you say, it collected a lot of snow. But I'm gonna try to make this other part thinner, and then I just pressed it against the green And that's pretty much. I could add some on the top as well. It might look more natural. And there you go. So that's one way of making it. Another way would be if you start with the brown, which is the trunk, and you roll it into a thick snake, and instead of creating that shape, the cone shape, you pretty much surround this with the green, kind of like wrap it around. Then you don't have to worry about gluing it, and you will just have to, once you have it mostly covered, this weight is not completely even. One side has more than the other, so I'll put some more here. So it's not very even right now, it doesn't look very smooth, but as I roll it, as I did before, eventually it will gather that pine tree shape. And then I could do the same thing I did before. Now in this case, it doesn't have a really long trunk. It looks realistically better. However, I don't have right now too much room to stick it into the soap. I could cut some of this edge to give me more room. So I'm trying just to cut the green portion and peel it off.